We're the 7th largest economy in the world. We are high value, and they're after our water, they're after our land, they're after our resources, and they're after our freedom.
That's what a lot of people don't understand about agriculture, is that you have no money, but you have land to go run cattle on. It's kind of like a trade-off in a lot of ways.
Yeah. One of the things that is upsetting to me at this point is that the screwworm is being ignored and passed off as not being as big a threat as it truly is. The facade is, oh, they have it made, they've got the ranch, they've got this, they've got that. Well, hey, you want my tax bill?
There you go.
You want my property tax bill? You want the mineral tax bill?
Yeah.
You want the school tax bill? Why are we not using nuclear energy? Nuclear energy is clean. I'd rather have nuclear energy than our wind turbines destroying our horizon. I was asked if I would run for Congress. And I said, why me? And they said, because you can win.
Hey guys, welcome back to The Real Rule. Today we are in Cotulla, Texas with a very special guest. But before we get going, we just want to say huge thank you to our presenting sponsor on this Texas tour. Thanks to everybody at Empire Ag, and stay tuned for more information on how Empire Ag can help you and your operations. We are here with the amazing Susan Story Rubio. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad you're here.
Me too. So tell everybody a little bit about where you come from and what you guys do. What's your operations like?
Well, I'm a 7th generation Texan. My people did not get here in time for the Texas Revolution, but they came shortly thereafter to help build this great state.
Yeah.
And so they came in and crossed through the South and were ranchers and farmers and
Yeah.
merchants, and came down and came to the promised land. They started out with small places and built up on both sides of my family, my mother's and my father's.
Wow.
I come from ranching family on both sides. And so my mother's from Zavala County and my father is from LaSalle County, which is Cotulla. But my mother and my father both were agriculture and ranching families. So it's in my blood, it's in my DNA.
What was it like growing up in South Texas and running around on a ranch?
It was idyllic.
Yeah.
It was idyllic. We had no cash, we didn't know it.
Yeah.
Because we always had the ranch and it was a playground, but we never knew when things were tough because we always had the ranch and we always had responsibility and obligations. And now I look back knowing why they did things the way they did was because it was tough and it was hard and cash was hard to come by. My grandparents grew up through the Depression, and so they knew what it was like. And then you're in a small community and everybody is in the same boat. And so you don't know that you're living through tough times. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's what a lot of people don't understand about agriculture, is that you have no money, but you have land to go run cattle on. It's kind of like a trade-off in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And you guys went through those tough times as well.
We went through those tough times, yeah.
Was it a lot of drought down there in y'all's
lot
part
of drought, lot of drought. And then you get your good rains. The beauty of South Texas is it doesn't take much. You can get 1/10 of an inch and it looks like it's rained several inches. Your tanks are dry, your creeks are dry, but you get grass that really responds. It's a healthy terrain, but you have to manage it. It takes a lot of management. You've got to rotate your cattle herd, and you've got to, instead of 25 cows to an acre, like in some places, you run 1 to about 75 right now with the conditions that we're in right now. We haven't had any substantial rain for quite some time.
How long has this current drought been kind of going on?
Well, we haven't had any measurable rain since May, but before that, it was about 18 months. And then before that, it was about 3 years. And then before that, it was about 7 years. It's been rough the last 12 years.
You are a cattle woman through and through. When did you know that you loved the cattle industry and being out there? Was it just always from the time you were a young girl?
I never knew anything different.
Yeah.
I never knew anything different. I grew up horseback, riding through the ranch. My brother and I were Indians, and we were pioneer children and wagon train orphans, and we were on the High Chaparral. We were Manny and Alito and whatever that guy's name was that was the son of the landowner out there at the High Chaparral. We knew no different. We had no television, we had no telephone, we had no washer and dryer out there. And we had windows that we could see through. My mother would hang sleeping bags over the windows because you could see through the cracks the space, and it was cold, and we had a space heater and a fireplace and a window air conditioner. It was the worst of times, but it was the best of times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we had bicycles
Yeah.
and we had horses, and we had it made.
Talk to the people out there about surviving those hard times as a young family. Your parents were going through that. You and your siblings were young kiddos. Talk about what it took to survive that and then come out on top. But then also, you guys had another huge debacle, if you will, with somebody in the finance world. What was it like to survive the bad times and then come out on top of that first?
It's like the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
You got your highs and your lows, and you just try to ride the waves. When it was tough, it was really tough. When the cattle market was down and we had a windfall profit tax and price of oil was down and gasoline was high, it was just it was tough. But the way that my family made it through it was being able to sell and lease for hunting. A lot of South Texas ranchers did that to survive. We grew up hunting, roaming wherever we wanted to go, and then all of a sudden we had to start leasing out. And it was just to keep the taxes paid. It wasn't necessarily for an income to survive on, and it helped, but there was a lot of places that are still in the family because they were able to do that. The value of hunting and the hunting industry really soar. What's interesting, before that, we'd gone through about 30 years of trying to recover from the screwworm epidemic. From the 50s until the very last case in Texas in 1981, we had a screwworm epidemic.
So that was all through your childhood.
It was all through my childhood.
What was that like to live with the screwworm?
It was horrible. It was just absolutely horrible. My little brother and I would saddle up and we'd go ride through my grandmother's place, and we're talking about in Zabala County, and it was a smaller place. We would ride through and come back and report newborn calves, or if we saw a cow that was infected with it, we would come back and tell my grandmother, and we would go out and show her where it was and doctor the cow or the calf and pray that they survived.
You know, we were talking at dinner last night. The screwworm back then, I also learned this from Susan, that was the old world screwworm, which is different than what we're facing today with the new world. Talk to us about what that was like to watch those animals go through that. And did y'all lose any?
Oh, we lost a devastating amount. I never understood why my grandparents would have the cows breed at a certain time of the year to give birth in the coldest time of the year, in the freezing cold of January, February, and into early March. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cruel. Well, that was the only way they could survive, the screwworm, because of the temperature. And it does not like cold temperatures, so it's at bay. It goes south, and the fly can't live in the cold. So they would manage the herds to put the bulls on at the right time where the cows gave birth during the coldest part of the year. And that was one way that we, managed it. But there were medications that were available, very little prevention. The last screwworm case in Texas was 1981.
Yeah.
And we were successful in pushing the screwworm down into South America. We got as far as South America, and then we kind of had to back off political reasons. The countries had sovereignty, and we let them handle it from there.
Yeah.
But the screwworm started making its way back during the Biden administration with the invasion of the immigrants coming from South America and through the Darien Gap. And I remember when I saw that there was a report of the screwworm had made it through the Darien Gap, I was like, is anybody listening? Is anybody looking? Because I was traumatized as a child. This is something that my brother and I grew up with, and it was very traumatic, watching my grandmother burn her cattle and cry. She needed her cattle for her livelihood, and there was no insurance. There was no government program to take care of her. Her calves died, her cows died, and her wildlife died. Also, people don't realize that the wildlife are affected. So we were horribly traumatized. And so this is something I'm very passionate about. But when I saw that come through the Darien Gap, I was like, is anybody looking? Is anybody seeing this? And it's kind of falling on deaf ears.
Wow.
And we're not worried about it. We're not worried about it. It'll never make it. Well, guess what? It's gotten to within 70 miles of our border at Laredo. Now, those are isolated cases, but the fly is close enough that it made it to Laredo.
Oh, yeah.
So
Well,
And we've had some human cases that have made it to the immigration and they were caught.
The Texas Tour series of the Real World podcast is sponsored by EA Capital Management, a private credit direct lending firm focusing on agriculture and rural business sectors, fueling growth, protecting legacies, and creating opportunity. Visit eacapitalmanagement.com to learn more.
that's what a lot of people are concerned about too. You know, like my band, for one, we were on the road and they were like, tell us about the screwworm. And I told them what I knew, and they were scared to death that it can go to humans.
Yes, ma'am.
It's in wildlife, it's in cattle, it's in humans. Is it in birds now, or could be?
The old screwworm did not affect the birds. It didn't care anything about birds, but now in Costa Rica, they're finding that the birds are susceptible to it.
Jeez.
And what it is it's a fly, is a very unique looking fly. It can be misconstrued with another fly that's just a regular bot fly, but this fly has a few little characteristics that are different. It's green with orange eyes and a couple of dots behind them. And this female fly will mate once, and then she will lay her eggs, and then she dies. Those eggs that she lays, she can lay up several batches of 300 to 500 eggs in as small as a bee sting or a tick bite.
Oh my gosh.
They can find that, and they're looking for it. They want healthy flesh. They do not want dead, necrotic flesh. We're finding new things out about this new world screwworm.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is that it is resistant to different chemicals and medications that were used in South America, and they weren't used properly. And so now it's immune to them and resistant. And one of them is Epidemic.
Wow.
And so people are thinking that they can use Epidemic in their deer feed and their cattle feed, and it'll help with the supply, and it won't.
Wow.
All we're doing is making it more resistant, and we're actually affecting the fever tick that crosses over from Mexico. We have a cattle fever tick. And
explain to people what the fever tick is and what it does.
It's a tick that comes across on the Mexican cattle, and we've eradicated that from Texas. And we have tick riders that ride and make sure that the Mexican cattle go back across on their side, but they'll cross over the river where it's crossable into our country, and then it infects our cattle. So when Ivomec is not used correctly, and it is effective with the fever tick, it will make them become resistant. And then we're in real trouble because we'll have the fly and the fever tick.
That's a pretty scary situation.
Yeah.
So we've got a new version of the screwworm that's resistant to a lot of medications that used to work pretty well. We've got the screwworm at our door, basically. This is obviously an area of your expertise. What's being done about it? What needs to be done about it?
I'm no expert. I'm not an expert.
More than me.
I am hooked up and in contact with a lot of experts, and I'm learning as much as I can, as fast as I can. And I am sharing what I learn.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between me and a lot of people, is there are a lot of people who don't want to say what I'm willing to say. And one of the things that is upsetting to me at this point is that the screwworm is being ignored and passed off as not being as big a threat as it truly is. And if you ask people, they will not comment that work for the government to you, but they will tell me, and then I will share that information. But they are very, very concerned because it is close. But unfortunately, we have some people who watched this fly and said nothing in a previous administration who are obviously still up at the USDA in the ear of our agricultural secretary, Brooke Rollins, who has done a great job, but unfortunately I believe she's not getting good information from her advisors. And I just recently learned that they're going to open trade up again to the Mexican cattle, which will bring that fly even closer and into Texas. We just had our second case within 70 miles, and that's with a closed border. So can you imagine what it's going to be like when they open that border and start crossing cattle again?
There's no way to know that all those cattle are free of it.
Well, they do get inspected, but unfortunately there is human error.
You were telling us last night that when the larvae are in the host, and I think when the host eventually dies, because that's what happens, it's kind of like a 2-week window. And when that host animal dies, they fall to the ground, and then they just
Right.
they keep going. Is
Yeah,
that
it's
right?
a life cycle. It's a circle of life. The lifespan of the fly is, the female fly is 4 or 5 days old. She mates one time, and she lays her eggs, and she'll lay her eggs in the course of a few hours. And then 10 to 12 hours later, those eggs will hatch. And then you've got 500 larvae in one little batch, and she lays them in little batches around the wound or in the wound. Within 10 to 12 hours, they hatch and begin feeding. And they are carnivorous, and they want healthy, live flesh. So they start eating, and they eat and eat and eat. And can you imagine thousands of these larvae feeding on an animal? Within 10 to 12 days, if not treated, that animal will die. And we're talking about a human as well.
Right.
Between 10 to 14 days, the host will die if not treated from secondary infections.
Yeah.
And then the larva will drop off the host, and it will go into the soil and pupate. And then within a week or two, it emerges as a fly, and within 5 days, it's mating, and there it goes, cycle again. So the way that we are trying to eradicate this, and the reason it takes so long, is because the proven method that is the best for the environment, best for other wildlife, for human population, is irradiating the flies with X-ray, normal X-ray radiation, which is, you know, in doses, it's very harmful to humans. It's something that we use all the time, and it's specialized and contained. And what they do is they put the flies in to a container, they irradiate them, and the males become sterile. And this fly is like a chicken. She's going to lay eggs, but she hopes that she's laying fertile eggs.
Right.
But she doesn't lay the eggs until she's mated. So if she's mated with a sterile male, she's going to lay infertile eggs.
Yeah.
And then she dies. So that's the end of that fly's life cycle. And then you have to do that over and over and over again.
Right.
And so they're irradiating flies, and they're releasing them in boxes that are dropped from airplanes into the areas where the fly is located. And you're praying that those females are mating with sterile males, and you're banking on that happening. And you can figure that 50 to 55% of the flies that are being dropped are male. You're hoping. You're also adding to the population. So eventually those flies are laying eggs that aren't going to hatch, and that's how
Wow.
you can eradicate it. It takes a long time. It takes decades.
Is that process happening at like light warp speed?
It's not warp speed at all, but we are working on it. We are assisting Mexico by sending them our cash to help with the funding of their facility. And then we're also assisting Panama, which has a facility that is raising the flies, and then they send them to Mexico to be irradiated. They are at a capacity of about 100 million flies a week. To be effective, you need about 500 million flies to be dropped a week. And Mexico's producing 100 million flies a week. And so we're sending cash down there to help them, and we just pray that that cash is going where it's supposed to be going. And with winter coming, and winter here, it's holding that fly at bay. And so they feel like they're being successful because the fly's not traveling as fast as it was. Well, it's seasonal. But you can guarantee that fly is reproducing down there, and the numbers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We haven't had any recent reports, but the last reports that I had, there were 6,000 cattle in Mexico that had died from it, and there were over 250 dogs
Okay.
and 70 humans
Wow.
that had died. That's news that's 2 months old.
I've never heard that news.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, you're not going to.
wow.
Yeah, I'm going to.
I feel like that's things that everyone needs to know
Right,
because that's
right,
way more serious than
right.
what my understanding
Well,
of
the
it
good
was.
news is that the Trump administration was reactive to this very, very positively. In March, they approved $750 million for the retrofit of the Moore Airfield facility in Mission, Texas, which was once a screwworm facility
Yeah.
where they would irradiate these flies and send them out by airplane across the southern United States, or Texas at least, where they would release these flies and they would start working. There's a $100 million challenge grant for research also. And so that facility is going to be a big help, and we need to continue working on that. But unfortunately, we no longer have the luxury of time because they've wasted 4 years watching the fly, seeing it move forward, and hoping that somebody else was going to take care of it. Well, you know how that is.
Yeah.
It's going to take us to take care of it. And now we want to retrofit a facility that used to take care of screwworm flies, that was retrofitted to work for the problem we were having with the fruit fly in the valley,
Yeah.
back to being a screwworm fly.
Yeah.
And they say that's 18 to 36 months.
To retrofit it from the fruit fly back to the screwworm.
Yes.
And when did they start working on that?
Well, I'm told that we have stripes in the parking lot for parking spaces. That's the last report that was given.
Wow.
And that was 2 months ago as well. So it's not moving real fast. And the reason is because we've got some scientists at the USDA in the animal plant health section.
Yeah.
It's called APHIS, APHIS, that are trying to decide which type of technology they want to put into this facility. My argument has been, why don't we just go ahead and do what's tried and true?
Yeah.
And they want to experiment with some e-beam, which requires cobalt, which is a national security risk, and they want to put this on our Texas-Mexico border. It's something that the terrorists are trying to steal from us every day for their nuclear weapon programs. And so they want to experiment with that, and they want to talk about some gene mutation, of trying to create where would they manipulate the gender of the flies so they don't release any female flies, which is great. I think it's all great, but it should have been done 4 years ago, not now.
We don't have time.
We need triage now. We need that facility to be under construction. Quit talking about what we're going to think about doing and just put what works. Doctors Kipling and Bushland came up with the irradiation program, the solution. We have the solution. And then Governor Dolph Briscoe implemented that in Texas and built that facility, and basically is the reason that the screwworm was eradicated in the first place. And so I don't know why we're trying to recreate the wheel. Let's just get this going. In the meantime, we're sending cash to Mexico. And who's following that?
I don't know.
I don't know. Mexico says they're using it wisely. When have they ever?
Have they given any results to the eradicating of the fly based on the money we've given them?
Well, like I said, my information is a couple of months old, and I do have people that are in the know that give me up-to-date information all the time, and they say that they have it under control. And I don't know how they have it under control at 100 million flies a week when we know we need 500 million flies a week.
Yeah.
And we have a facility that's still in discussion, and that's going to take 18 to 36 months to retrofit. And then you have to get it into production, which takes more time. But in the meantime, we have a labor problem, and that is some of the nastiest work. They say it's going to be difficult to manpower and get people to work in this facility. Something's got to give.
Yeah.
And fortunately, through my work on this, I've come in contact with a man who was a scientist working for the USDA on this very program, and he was with them for 21 years and left and went into the private sector and started his own company. It's called M3 Technologies, and they have mobile modular sterilization units that can be picked up and shipped or trucked. They can be sent anywhere in the world, and it does this very exact thing. They sterilize insects to prevent a plague.
These mobile units do the same thing that this fly factory, if you will, that's being retrofitted, that so far we have the parking lot paint strips in, that's going to still take months and months to get up line, years. What that factory, so to speak, would do, we already have the capability to do with mobile units.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
could put those mobile units in Mexico where they don't have the labor shortages that America does.
We have personnel.
Oh, they have
I
personnel.
mean, they have personnel. It's a
It's already-
turnkey situation. They have the units and they have the personnel. They are sitting there waiting for the green light to go.
Wow.
In a week, we can have units in Mexico to assist in this, and they can be moved as the fly moves. And if they get to Texas, we can move those same units that were way down in southern Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Those same units can be transported to our border and put in the hot spots. Now, are they a solution to the problem? They're a part of the solution. We need that facility
Right.
at Moorfield to be
Sure.
up and running.
Yeah.
We need that technology to be decided upon
Right.
and tried and true.
Yeah.
Let's don't recreate the wheel.
Absolutely.
The government's already slow.
Right.
Government's already expensive. Let's just go with what we already know works. And in the meantime, instead of sending millions and millions and millions, and I think the last payment was 20 million we sent, that would buy 2 mobile units. So that would equal another 50 million flies that could be released each week.
So each mobile unit can produce how many flies again?
25 million flies a week.
Each unit.
Each unit,
And they roughly cost about 10 million.
10 million.
But we've sent 100 million to Mexico so far.
We don't know exactly how much we've sent. They haven't disclosed that to us, but the last check I know that was sent was 20 million.
Wow. But it is public record that we've allocated 750 million to bring these factories up on these plants, which no one's against.
No one's against.
But we need 500 million flies a month,
week.
a week. My God. And each one of these mobile units could do 25 million.
25 million.
Wow.
So for what we've already sent to Mexico in cash that I know of, that's 2 units, that's another 50 million. So instead of 100 million flies, Mexico could be releasing 150 million. Put 5 of our units down there. All you're doing is building up. Instead of sending the cash, teach the man to fish. And the sad thing is that those scientists are not losing anything.
No.
They have a paycheck. They get their pension. They have their benefits. This is our livelihood.
Amen.
They aren't betting their herds on this. They're betting our herds on this.
Amen.
And we're not talking about just livestock. A lot of people think this is just a cattle situation. This is not a cattle situation. This is anything that has a beating heart.
Yes.
Anything
Yes.
that has red blood
Yeah.
is susceptible to this. And one of the things that I brought to the attention of the people that I visited with is nobody's considering the threat to the wildlife. We can treat and we can manage our livestock herds, but we can't our wildlife.
No.
And there is nothing to prevent this from infecting our wildlife.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was a kid, there were no deer. There were no jackrabbits, there were no cottontails, there were no coyotes. Survival of the fittest. And it took 30 years to get to where we are.
Ranching itself is not the profitable thing that everyone thinks it is.
Right.
And
Right.
to put our already low herd numbers at risk, everyone's up in arms. We don't have the herd numbers. Why are we risking them
Why?
even more?
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Unnecessary. And like you said, it's not anyone working in the government's herd they're risking.
Right.
They're risking all of ours.
They're risking ours. And they're not just risking our herds, it's our economy. This is a national security issue. People don't realize how cataclysmic this is. If Texas is the meat wagon of the United States, okay? We are the backbone of agriculture in the United States. Everybody's important and a part of it. But if Texas goes, it's going to be cataclysmic. And there are tens of billions of dollars in the Texas economy that are wildlife generated. Hunting.
Yeah.
Hunting. And we're not talking about just our native. We're talking about the exotics, the exotic ranchers and the hunting operations that have come in the last 10, 20 years and invested a lot of money in exotics. They have animals purchased years in advance and sold years in advance. And if we have this happen, it is going to be a huge financial disaster.
Does the average hunter understand, you think?
I don't think the average hunter understands what's happening because you're not hearing about it in the media. And when they talk about it, they're talking about a cattle issue. They're
Yeah.
not bringing into the equation the effect on the wildlife.
Yeah. I mean, hunting's a huge economy.
Huge economy. It's equal to or greater than livestock in Texas now. One thing else I don't want to bring up.
Yeah.
Only 40% of licensed hunters go to the polls.
You guys got to vote. Wow. I never understood that.
Yeah.
That's scary.
So they're allowing these people to be put in that don't care about these things.
No, they
and
just
are oblivious to our way of life.
It sounds like there's a lot of people who want to have a play day in a science lab over curing the disease itself of the screwworm deal.
Yeah. You don't even take into consideration the endangered wildlife, the endangered species. We've got a problem with our bighorn sheep in West Texas. The aoudad had been imported, and they carry a bacteria that gives our bighorn pneumonia. And our numbers are going down rapidly.
What are the aoudad?
Aoudad is an Asian goat. They were brought in to supplement income.
Yeah, to supplement a rancher because the price of beef is not that high.
Well, we can go through all kinds of things that affects a family ranch or a family farm. My personal family, when I was born, it was a large operation. And because of the death tax, every time somebody died, we had to sell some land. And then when times got tough, they had to sell some land. Go through a recession, we had to sell some land. Or lost it to the banks.
Talk to us about what you guys went through.
Well, I can tell you that when my grandfather died, he had debt, and my grandmother had to sell, or it was going to be taken, and she lost that source of income. And then personally, my father had a ranch that my great-grandfather had gifted to him and my mother when they married. And during the divorce, my mother signed her interest back over to him. She wanted to give it to my little brother and I, but the lawyer said, "Oh no, go ahead and just give it to him." And so she did. Then my father, during the recession, had to borrow money, and he collateralized that loan with that piece of property that was gifted to him. And I don't know the circumstances of why that loan was called, but the loan was called.
But he wasn't upside down. He was just operating and going along.
He was using it for his business operation expenses. Like I said, I don't know the circumstances of why the loan was called, but the loan was called by his then good friend, who was his banker that he had grown up with and hunted with and friends with. Then he said, "Well, Dudley, I have somebody that would like to buy your ranch. You want to sell it?"
Oh, wow. It always comes
So
to
rather
that.
than lose it, my father sold it, and that banker now owns that ranch.
Oh, wow.
So
Probably sold it for way below market value.
Probably so. That was worth $300 an acre then. That was good money.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that has happened to in ag, where somebody wants what you've got, what Joe Schmo down the street has got, and uses that kind of leverage to get it out from underneath them.
My father suffered a stroke in 2006, and he had a couple $100,000 worth of debt. And my brother went to the bank, who had his power of attorney, and said, "I'd like to extend the loan." And they said, "Sure." Same banker. "But you need to put the whole ranch up as collateral for a couple $100,000. And my brother said, "I don't think so." And we did something different.
Yeah.
But that's just how they are. They think we're stupid. And unfortunately, we're not stupid, but we get put into positions where either they're going to take it and it's going to be auctioned off at the courthouse steps.
Yeah.
Or you can find a buyer, and hopefully you can find a buyer and come out a little bit ahead.
Right.
Or at least pay your debt.
For those out there watching who maybe don't understand, it is a common tactic amongst bad actors, but many good bankers out there. But if you are a bad actor, that is a common thing where oh, you've got X amount of debt, but you've got way more asset than you would need to cover that amount of debt. But they want, as long as they can get the assets attached to that small amount of debt, they can take the huge asset for pennies on the dollar, is what you're saying. And they can either put you in a corner and force you to go to the courthouse steps and watch everything you've known and loved be basically stolen or gifted in a lot of ways or sold way below market, or you can try to go find a buyer where you can at least have a little bit of profit to go start over or whatever.
The facade is, oh, they have it made. They've got the ranch, they've got this, they've got that. Well, hey, you want my tax bill?
There you go.
You want my property tax bill? You want the mineral tax bill?
Yeah.
You want the school tax bill? You want, I mean, it's expensive and it takes a lot of work on top of that.
The school tax bill, that's something I think most people don't understand, that farms and ranches pay the largest share of the taxes associated with our schools. What's your experience like with that?
I think it's gone overboard.
Yeah.
It's like everything else, it's just, it's been abused. There's other ways that we could do things besides taxes. And I applaud President for finding those ways. And some people ask me, well, what do you think about the tariffs? Well, I'm all for tariffs. And the reason I am is because you're only paying that amount on something that you're using rather than writing a big check for things you're not using. I'm just going to say $10,000 tax. You write a check for $10,000 versus if you have a tariff and you're only using this and this and this, you're only paying those taxes on this and this and this rather than the big check.
Right.
And that's what people don't understand. Oh, these tariffs have raised the cost of this, and the Christmas is so expensive because of the tariffs. Well, it's only expensive on what you buy. It's not expensive across the board. And there ought to be some benefits to living in this country.
Boy, howdy. Hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Well, you are very involved in politics, and you were going to run for Congress, and then they redistricted, and you did the right thing, the honorable thing, even though you could have still ran and not lived in the district that you were running in. You just said, hey, they've redistricted me out of my home area, and I don't feel right running for this seat, which
Right.
is a rare thing these days.
I was running. I had an active campaign.
Yeah.
Very successful campaign.
Right.
Lots of support. And it was just getting geared up. And the redistricting happened in Texas, which needed to happen. And it happened 5 years ago. It's just been held up in court.
Okay.
So during the previous administration is when it was decided that Texas needed to be redistricted. And now they're using it against the Republicans. They say, oh, this is a Republican thing. No, actually, it was done during the Biden administration. It's just been held up in appeals courts, different people appealing it, and it's passed. The appeals court said it needs to happen. And so they redistricted, and I was a few months into the campaign and just getting rolling, and the redistricting happened, which was a good thing for my home county. We were redistricted out of 23 into 28 Texas congressional district, rather than being one of 28 counties in this huge district that went from our county, which was a southeastern county, all the way to El Paso, 880 miles of the border. We are now grouped into a smaller geographical area in which we have more in common. LaSalle County has more in common with Webb County, and that is a population center, than we do Bexar County, which is San Antonio. Webb County's 50 miles away. Laredo's 50 miles away. San Antonio's 90 miles away, but we have more in common with Webb County and the counties that we're grouped in with now.
Yeah.
So it was a good thing. It needed to happen. It was
Sure.
just unfortunate
Sure.
that I had declared and was running, and I chose to withdraw. It is possible for me to have stayed in the race, but I could not see being a carpetbagger asking my friends that to support me financially
Right.
and help me win this race when I am no longer a resident of the district, and I do not believe that that is a good thing.
Right.
I think you should live in your district. This is something that was written in antiquities, back when it was a large, open expanse of country, and not everybody had the means to get to Washington, D.C. and spend the time. So somebody that was over here could represent you over here. And I get it. And you need your representation, but we have vehicles and transportation and airplanes now. We have a way for that to not be necessary. And I really do believe that the person representing you should have something in common with you.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for the state of Texas? I see a lot of stuff in the media where people are trying to come after the state of Texas to flip it from the red state that it is to a blue state. What are your insights on that, if any?
I don't see Texas turning blue again in the foreseeable future, but I don't think we should ever rest on those laurels. There are still plenty of blue counties. There are still plenty of blue communities, and those blue communities do have an effect on legislation and representation. So by and large, the majority of Texas, if you look at the map, is red, but you've got blue Bexar County, blue Harris County, blue Dallas, and that's where the populations are. The rest is red, and that's why the Electoral College is so important in the presidential race. Because if you don't have the Electoral College, all the rest of the red
Means
is
nothing.
ignored.
Yes.
So
absolutely,
that is making sure that the less populated areas, they also have a voice.
Absolutely.
And are counted.
Explain that to people who don't understand, because there's so much that the average American doesn't understand. The Electoral College was meant to not ignore the minorities.
Less populated areas.
Yes.
So you don't have Los Angeles, San Francisco, Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, New York City, Chicago
running
the country. Everybody in between has a voice.
Do you think you'll ever run again for anything?
I will.
You are a salt of the earth voice for
Thank
so
you.
many out there.
Thank you.
And you guys have been very successful in what you're doing. You obviously are doing something right, but yet you are still, I would say, the people's champ. Never lost touch with the salt of the earth, because that's what you are and what you come from.
Right.
You know?
Well, people don't realize how important politics really is. If you are the child or the ancestor of an immigrant, those people were leaving something that they didn't agree with that was political. It could be a king, or it could be a way of government, it could be a party, but they were leaving something for a reason, coming here to make it better. And if you don't think politics are important, ask your ancestors when you get to see them again someday why it was important that they got on a wood boat and traveled 4 months across the sea with no modern conveniences, no air conditioning, no heat, no plumbing. Why was it worth it to make those trips and make those sacrifices? Why those people came across the Rio Grande? Why they came across the Atlantic? Why they came across the Pacific and are still coming? Politics is very important.
The state of Texas has an amazing history with everybody immigrated, obviously, at one point or another. But it seems like there used to be a desire to want to come here and be an American. Is that still happening in Texas?
Texas is under attack. Our natural resources are under attack, and our way of life is under attack. We're the 7th largest economy in the world. We are high value, and they're after our water, they're after our land, they're after our resources, and they're after our freedom.
It seems like they're not even allowing us to process our own resources here in America anymore, and especially in Texas, even in the oil. What is having to happen there that we can't even process it in our own country?
Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't those refineries on the southern coast of the United States being retrofitted and fixed and repaired, or new ones built? Listen, I'm all for fossil fuel because there's an abundant supply down there, and they are finding out that it actually does reproduce.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
It's not just fossils, it's a production, and so is water. There's all kinds of great information that's coming out. It's not a finite source. But why are we not using nuclear energy? Nuclear energy is clean. I'd rather have nuclear energy than our wind turbines destroying our horizon And every one of those has a chip in it that's made by the communist Chinese or the party or a company that works for them or is owned by them.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming for our water for green energy. What are we going to do? We are already suffering for a lack of water subsurface, and it's not raining.
AI data centers are using up our
And these
ag
centers
water.
are coming in. They want our water to build hydrogen batteries. They want to drain the water that feeds rivers and reservoirs that people drink from
Yeah.
for AI, for green energy. And now we've got the screw worm coming. Our land is going to be worth nothing.
What do you think is on the horizon?
I think we better pay attention, and people better start getting involved in politics and getting in there and running
Mm-hmm.
and voicing.
Yeah.
Because
What's our other choice? We don't have one.
we don't have a choice.
Yeah. I know everyone gets uppity that like, oh, don't talk politics or don't make it political, but everything is political these
It
days.
is. It is.
Our way of life of doing anything comes back to politics.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to tell a kiddo out there watching the truth of socialism or communism, what would that be?
Well, you can start at home. You can go in there to their room and start getting stuff out and saying, we're going to give this to so-and-so. You work, and this is going to be your allowance, but you're not going to get to keep it all. We're going to give it to so-and-so.
Mm-hmm.
When you're sick, I'll tell you whether or not you can have medicine or not, or which medicine you can take. It's going to take action. You can't tell them. You have to show them. It's going to be taken away from them.
Well, I think one of the allures is everyone thinks that they're going to get something from someone else, but they don't think about what someone else is going to get from them. Do you see that coming in our doorstep as well here in Texas?
If we don't stop it,
Yeah.
if we don't stop it, it is. It's here.
Yeah.
They're trying now.
You're talking about encouraging people to run for office. You do take an active role in helping recruit people, as I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get going in that?
Well, when I withdrew before I withdrew, the county chair at LaSalle County's GOP party asked me if she said she needed to retire and would I be willing to take it over? And I said, well, I'm running for Congress. And she goes, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Well, then I'll stay on. This is great. Well, then redistricting happened, and it took me about a month to make my decision on whether or not I would continue. I had a lot of people who said, no, it doesn't make a difference. You still are. You are District 23. You do represent us. It took me a while. A lot of tears.
Yeah.
A lot of praying. What's the right thing to do? Show me what's right. And it happened. I knew what I needed to do. And so I withdrew. And then I was like, well, what am I going to do now? I'm going to say, yes, I'll do that. I'll be the chair for the county GOP.
Yeah.
And I went down there, and before I could even tell people that I had done it, I had received a text from a friend who said, please come home, we need you. So I have a home in Bulverde, and I have a home in Cotulla. Cotulla is home.
Yeah.
I have grandchildren, children, and a mother
Yeah.
in San Antonio area. So I have a home up here
Sure.
in San Antonio. I have a home there in
Yeah.
San Antonio
Yeah.
for when I need to be in San Antonio.
You bet.
But home is Cotulla, and that's where I vote. It's where I pay my taxes, where I register my car, where I serve on jury duty. And I have since 2012. Well, I said, I am coming home. So I said I would do it.
Yeah.
And some really good people are coming out of the woodwork to say that they want to run
Heck yeah.
for county office.
Yeah.
We have a county election coming up this next year. So
Wow.
we're working hard. And I'm still recruiting. I have one more week. I need some more candidates.
You are a very strong, independent, inspirational woman. You are tough. You are caring, loving, all those things. You have a beautiful family. You know, you're kind of open about your faith. How does your faith work in your life?
Well, I can't imagine not having a relationship with my creator. I depend on it. I depend on him. I depend on his wisdom. He is my Abba Father. I don't have an earthly father that I can ask advice and get perfect advice. And my faith is first.
Yeah.
My faith is first. I have lived long enough and hit the wall and dug myself a deep hole. And fortunately, he was there. Whenever you're ready to quit doing that, I'll get you out of there. That's
Yeah.
the kind of relationship I have. And every big decision is based on what he has for me, because no matter what, it's always better
Absolutely.
and it's always the right answer.
Right.
But I've had to say, open the door wide and slam it in my face when I'm asking for an answer.
Yes.
And I'll say, okay, can you tell me just one more time? Just give me one more sign that this is what I'm supposed to do. And he
Guilty.
does it.
Wow.
And he does it.
Does an example come to mind in which that door was really obvious? The sign was
Well,
really
my
obvious?
congressional campaign.
Yeah.
I was asked to run 3 weeks before that. I had to ask God, okay, you made me this way for a reason. Did I miss it? Because if I missed it, will you give me another chance? Will you forgive me? Give me another chance? But if you haven't, will you let me know what it is and make sure I know really clearly that this is what you want me to do? 3 weeks later, I was called and I was asked if I would run for Congress.
Wow.
And I said, why me? And they said, because you can win.
Wow.
And I took about a month, 6 weeks praying about it, asking for signs, asking for people to come to me and give me good advice. And I had good advice. And I asked the people that matter to me the most, and some that are just randomly asked, what would you think? And I got overwhelming response of support.
Wow.
And along the way, I guess probably every other day, I would say, are you sure this is what you want me to do? And I would say, just show me something. And a person would come into my life, or a silly little something that only I would know would be a sign. And every time. But I prayed that no matter what, if I wasn't supposed to even get to Washington, that what I was doing would be a means to an end. That he would use that I would see where I was supposed to go with this and where I was supposed to be, what I was supposed to be doing, saying what I needed to say, that he needed for me to say, and to use it. If I wasn't supposed to be in Washington, still let it be what you have for me to be used from this campaign. And there have been several things that have come through having run that I would never have happened if I hadn't.
Do you get the political bug from someplace in your family? Has your family ran for political office before? Are you the first child, or?
No. I was telling you last night about my French Huguenot family
Yeah.
ancestors. Escaped in the last moments before he was going to be hanged for not converting during Louis XIV's reign.
In France.
In France. And escaped in a hay wagon, went to Switzerland, fell in love, married, went to London, had a son. They moved to the Carolinas, came to the United States.
Wow.
To the Carolinas. Well, he was actually present during the Continental Congress, at the Continental Congress.
Wow.
He was present. And he was asked to be a member of the first legislature of South Carolina.
Wow.
Due to physical restraints and illness, age,
Sure.
he declined, but his son, he said, how about my son?
Wow.
And his son, who is my ancestor,
Yeah.
agreed and was in the first legislature of South Carolina.
Wow. Before it was a state.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Because they both fought in the Revolution.
They both
Yeah,
fought in the American
yeah,
Revolution.
Yeah.
Wow.
I come from a lot of people who fought in the American Revolution. The first ancestor got here in 1609 from Scotland. Most of my people came from Scotland and England, but mostly Scotland.
Wow. You're a true daughter of the American Revolution.
I am.
Absolutely.
I am.
I am as well.
Proud of it. I've got great DNA.
You do.
I do. I have great DNA
Fighters.
on both sides. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
In the best sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm
Fighting for this country.
fighting for what's right.
Well, whatever you do in your political future, you got our vote.
I think one of the things that can be said about me is I will say what needs to be said.
So many people are afraid of that. So many people are afraid to be bold
Hmm.
and to tell the truth. And I understand that to some degree, but that's part of why we've started this podcast here is to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And
Set you free. It's a great story.
it sure is. It's better than a made up one.
Yeah. Yeah. In all our uniqueness and individuality, we're all the same.
Yeah.
We really are.
Yes.
And what we go through can be used against us or can be used for the greater good and to bring comfort to others who are going through the same thing.
That's right.
Or to get inspiration, give inspiration.
You do bring comfort to a lot of folks through, I mean, I know you're a big encourager of others, you know, and you've been through a lot in your life and you use that to encourage others and comfort them on their path. This has just been a ball. We've just had such a great time today. And thank you for letting us into your home and into your life and sharing your stories with us because this is what we need to hear in this country.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking.
Absolutely. Well, we've got a couple rapid fires
Okay.
to wrap us up. One thing people may not know about you.
I will tell you, my husband said it best. I am the most fragile, strong person you've ever met.
I get that. Love it. Water or whiskey?
Water.
One thing you can't live without.
God.
Country or rock and roll?
Ooh, I like them both.
Yeah, I do too. That's hard. All right, last one. Finish the phrase. The way to my heart is.
Be real.
Amen. Love it.
Be real.
Be real. Right here on The Real Rule. Susan, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one. Adios.
If you don't already follow us on social media, please do. We're on Instagram and YouTube at The Real Rule. Please follow us on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Give us a thumbs up or a heart or a like. It really helps. If you want to get the merch, go to claredunn.com. Click on store. Once you get there, you can get a Support Ag t-shirt. And thank you guys for all your love and support.